This is Robert Martellacci, the MindShare Learning Report, and just coming off the 15th Canadian EdTech Summit. Welcome to this special edition. I'm here with my co-chair, Dr. Steve Joordens, professor of psychology at the University of Toronto, Scarborough, and director of the Advanced Learning Technologies Lab. And thank you for co-chairing such an inspiring and transformative event, Dr. Joordens.
Yeah, I mean, thank you just for inviting me. First of all, it's the first time I've ever done anything like this, and I was excited about it because I was excited about our new building at UTSC and some of the innovation, and excited about AI. It's a really kind of pivotal time in education where I think we really have to rethink some things. We have to grieve some educational practices that maybe are no longer valid in an AI world, and we have to look at the rich opportunity that AI brings and try to negotiate that in ways that help our students.
Absolutely. And as we unpack this, a huge thank you to everyone who joined us from far and wide. We had Australia, Denmark, Sweden, many from the US. I might be missing a country or two in the equation, but to our speakers, sponsors, partners, especially our delegates, you made the summit really an unforgettable experience, and together navigating some of the pressing issues and exploring those cutting edge innovations. We, celebrated AI, but in education, but with some cautionary measures too. We're not all in. And what's really cool is I was reading about the history of Gen AI, and the foundation, the origins are with the University of Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, for certainly with the work on artificial neural networks that, we think of Jeff Hinton now, of course, because Jeff got the Nobel Prize recently. But there was a whole lab at U of T, I think of people like Susan Becker at McMaster that came out of Hinton's lab, but is doing a lot of good stuff there. And absolutely, that was where a lot of this stuff started. But then one day that generative AI train just kind of popped out on us, and we've been on the ride ever since. And it is, I mean, I like how you said cautionary too, because I think the nice thing about the conference is we had that mix. You have those people that are saying, wow, there's all this potential with AI, but we also had the people saying, yeah, but there's some real challenges to figure out how we bring it in effectively, how we do it respectfully with teachers who are already overworked and stressed. How do we expect or I shouldn't say expect, I should say help them to embrace AI in ways that work within their framework. And so I think of things like the fantastic project that you had going on with Dell to come up with some very specific use cases. So it's to be able to tell a teacher, here's some different things you can achieve, and here's some very tractable ways to bring this into your classroom. You don't have to learn about AI, the big AI. You can learn about this specific use case and feel comfortable bringing that into your classroom. And I think that's the kind of thing that shows that balance of innovation, but understanding of the challenge. And I think that's where we're in education. I felt that loud and clear throughout the conference. I thought that was really well.
Absolutely. I loved Andrei Schleicher from the OECD and his inspirational 7-minute chat.
Yep.
And talking about digital transformation. I mean, the train has left the station, and that AI train. And I think of the stat that Steve Brown shared in his closing keynote, around 70% of students preferring to resort to ChatGPT or an AI bot instead of their teacher or instructor. That has serious implications for the future of teaching and learning. Talk to me about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I think we have to be we have to be really aware and sensitive to all the dynamic things that are going on. So, for example, we also recently created a version of me that is an office hour chatbot, and it talks in my voice, and it kind of has my mannerisms, but of course, it has access to the whole internet, and it can answer questions really, really well. And as you say, students prefer talking to it than me. And I could have predicted this going in, because students nowadays, thanks to their heavy reliance on social media and just social interaction, the comparison that comes from social media stuff, they are very anxious about talking to other human beings. And so if you give them an option to get the information they could get from an office hour without talking to a human being, they will take that. But we have to be aware of that. We have to be aware that trade-off is going on. And we have to find ways of bringing in those human interactions into our formal education in other ways. And just as one example, yes, I have this chatbot in my course, but I'm
Right.
also have all of my students now doing a teamwork project where they're in teams of 5 people, strangers. I just randomly put them into groups and I say, you 5 people are now a marketing company and you have to create a public service announcement. And so that
Right.
forces them to negotiate the tricky human interaction stuff that they would rather avoid. But if we let them avoid it in every context, we're not doing them any favors. We have to give them structured opportunities to learn that human interaction as well.
Right. So,
Yep.
just sharing some of the numbers from the event, and we introduced the Teacher STEM AI Sports Symposium on the Saturday. That was pretty cool for teachers to take in that
Yep.
element of it, because it really is about demystifying AI
Yeah.
and tinkering. You're not going to break AI, and leadership. It struck me that leadership, when we had the Chris Kennedys of the world and Tom D'Amico,
Yep.
who are at the highest level in their district, embracing the concept and scaling it at scale. A week later, Ottawa Catholic School Board had an AI summit in their district that attracted, 200-300 teachers on a Saturday because of curiosity. Talk to me
Yeah.
about the importance of curiosity and growth mindset in teaching and learning.
Yeah. I mean, the way I like to put it is I'll say wonder is the bridge between fear and opportunity. And what I mean by that is, for AI, the first reaction is fear. We're seeing the practices that we embrace that are no longer I don't know, valid as some, asking students to
Hmm.
write from scratch is now a tricky thing. Why would they write from scratch? And it's a funny thing to even be asking them. But at the same time, so we might see that go away and we might be
Right,
fearful for how we're going to educate. But
right,
when we start playing, like you said, you're not going to break AI. When you start playing with it and you start realizing the things it's good at and the things it's not good at, you start to see the opportunities and the ways that it could bring things into our classroom and our approach to teaching that were impossible before. And we heard a lot of people doing that, talking about it's now possible to do X, it's now possible to do Y. And I think when teachers, when educators who deeply want to help their students succeed, when they start seeing that opportunity, and I think wonder is what gets them there, playing there,
right.
then you've got something to counterbalance the fear. Yes, we're going to have to negotiate this, and it's a great opportunity for us to model for our students problem solving. It's a good opportunity to model failure, trying things in your class. And if they don't go well, to admit that didn't go well. Let's talk together about why it didn't go well and how we should maybe do it better in the future. And if we're modeling that sort of growth mindset, that openness to failure, that I think we have an opportunity to do that right now. It sounds kind of funny, but we're going to fail a lot as we try to figure things out and retweak. And let's see that as a feature and not a bug.
Well,
It's something our students can really learn from.
and that's part of the C21 Dell AI use case project that we're actually celebrating the closure and launch this week. And it was intended to do just that, from the administrative level at the highest level to the principal level and right down to the classroom. They were piloting, tinkering, and we've created these 20 use case projects that we'll be launching as of tomorrow. And very exciting to see, what's possible.
Yep.
What are the possibilities? And so what's next? What's your next? I'm thinking about what's my next, and I'll share
Yeah.
what my next is if you share what your next is.
Well, I mean, I think to give an example, and I had the chance of doing a sort of quick pitch of it in 2
Right.
minutes just to see how it landed. But to give an example of the opportunity, for example, I've always hated multiple choice tests. I'm an assessment guy, and I've always felt we use multiple choice tests because of their logistic ease, but not because of their pedagogical value. And I imagine something like a holistic assessment of learning, we call it, a HALBOT, so to speak, where imagine a student goes through some educational experience, whatever it may be. Then they spend a bit of time interacting with this bot who basically does an oral examination, almost like the old school British oral examinations, where it interrogates the student at a number of different ways, number of different depths, can look at skills as well as knowledge. In fact, anything that we value in education, we could have it look for that. And we could end up getting an assessment of learning that is much deeper, much richer, and much more holistic. And I always think that assessment drives innovation. And if we get an assessment that's aligned with innovation, if the
Powerful.
assessment responds to the things that we know are innovative, then that's going to really help us kind of get everything going well. So that's where I'm an assessment guy. So that's where my head goes first. But when I started realizing we could do oral assessments at scale with AI, that was the kind of thing that says, okay, I'm okay with the multiple choice test. I'm okay burying that. Let's just bury it, put a headstone on it, be done with it, and let's get on to the future.
Well, Alec, thank you for that. Alec Kuros questions the future of the essay.
Yep.
Is the essay relevant?
Yep.
Versus a podcast. You want to demonstrate your knowledge, and there's different ways to do that. So, perhaps the essay, throw
Mhm.
a tombstone on that too
Yeah.
one day. But I
Yeah.
want to ask you about the great snapback. You were famous for coining that phrase during COVID, and I feel like it sort of came true.
Yeah.
There were one-to-one. There were districts that were one-to-one that are no longer one-to-one,
Yeah.
right? So talk to me about where that's at
Yeah,
post-COVID.
I actually feel like I got that right in some domains and wrong in other domains. Like if you go to the
Okay.
ballpark now, which is I'd talk about things like that, it's the great snapback. People behave in the ballpark or the hockey arena, largely like they did pre-pandemic. We've fallen back into our habits. We've lost all of our social worries about being shoulder to shoulder with somebody, et cetera, et cetera. So for a lot of our lives, we have gone back to living the way we did pre-pandemic. But that's not so much the case in our work environments where we now, are working a whole lot more from home and trying to negotiate that, and potentially in our educational environments. And I think it's kind of good in the educational context that we didn't completely snap back to pre-pandemic, because there's a lot of great things that people learned during the pandemic about how to harness technology and online learning to really support and augment face-to-face learning. And I really think you need both of those things. I think both have a really important role to play. And so I don't want to snap back totally to face-to-face all the time.
No.
And I think that's the example we're getting, a little bit of the best of the past, but people also being willing to kind of figure out, and AI demands it, right? It's the good and bad of AI. It's robbing our autonomy. We have no choice. We have to figure it out. We have to work with it. That's always a little stressful, but it also has all these opportunities. So it's kind of a fun problem solving task, I think.
And what's interesting on the great snapback? So, you know, we were one-to-one right across the country, pretty much,
Yeah.
one-to-one computing.
Yeah.
So great snapback. All the provinces banned mobile phones pretty much.
Yep.
No longer one-to-one.
Yeah.
And, I have the greatest respect for teachers.
Yeah.
And as I talk to teachers, a lot of teachers want to be innovative, but don't have the tools. They don't
Yep.
have the tools to be innovative. They get they get slammed and criticized for not being innovative, but a lot of them want to be innovative, but don't have the tools.
Yeah.
So how do we scale tools? AI is not inexpensive. Peter
Right.
Singh will tell you
Right.
that, to run AI, you're paying a monthly fee. I subscribe to 4.0 ChatGPT. I'm
Yep.
paying a monthly fee. School districts don't have the funding that business does, and Canva has it right. Canva, the Writer Summit, kudos to Canva and all the
Mhm.
other awesome sponsors and partners we had that made this possible. We had over 30 sponsors and partners, and of
Yep.
which uh, gratitude to University of Toronto Scarborough. You were
Yep.
the catalyst behind it, your team at Scarborough campus. And what about the building? Come on, like that building was off the charts,
Yeah.
incredible. And
That
Sam
that that was
Abraham
such a
made the
pleasure to,
building.
yeah. Yeah.
Like to
Absolutely.
have him there was the icing on the cake for me. What a
Yeah.
class guy, Scarborough born and raised,
Yep.
U of T graduate. You can write a better script. TDSB graduate,
Yep.
U of T grad, and giving back.
Yeah, I mean, as far as a sort of voice for innovation, entrepreneurship, and caring about the Scarborough community, I mean, I was really, I tell the story that I saw his name on the building without any knowledge of who he was. And I thought that was great that he was just willing to support our endeavors. But then as I learned about him, and his entrepreneurial journey, and he's just a very interesting guy. He's got about, I don't know, 6-10 companies, and they're all so different. They're from like human resources over here to owning a basketball team over there to, it's literally, and what he ended up saying, which I thought was really inspirational, is that he looks for somebody with a passion, somebody who says, this is what I want to spend my life doing. And if he believes in that person, he basically gives them the business infrastructure behind it. It's like the shared HR, the shared whatever. So it's like, I've got all this in place for all my companies. You can piggyback on that, but now take it your direction with your product or your idea. And that's how he's been able to do so many things. So just very clever. I could see when he was talking to the CIOs, who we dropped him in on the CIO meeting at some point, I could see almost people wanting to brainstorm with him. Like, it's like, we've got some issues, we got some problems. Can we borrow your brain here and get some of your ideas? Because you're so clever.
Peter Singh alluded to it. Teacher absenteeism costs $200 million a year to the TDSB. If you extrapolate that across the province, it's over $1 billion. Yeah. So if he can help with the state of well-being of teachers and support and nurture that can be a huge impact. And that's a great segue to my next question around AI and HI, human intelligence, but HC, human connection. Yeah. The secret sauce that you demonstrated so clearly when you invited me to your lecture was the human connection that you established with your students. To come there and see a full house on a Friday morning at 9 a.m., I've never seen that in my years in education. So clearly that human connection, that people really valued the conversations and the diversity of people, from a teacher to a professor to a dean to, a CIO and district CEOs. I mean, it was quite remarkable.
I think that's the really interesting thing about this conference that I think it's important to hold on to, is that there are people that are so different in terms of, from administrators to educators to, there's a lot of students. We invited a whole bunch of students there as well to be part of the dialogue. And then there's people from industry of various sorts. And so there's all this combination of people who all care about navigating the space for to support our future students. And so I felt no hierarchies. I felt no, it was really a bunch of people where suddenly I was talking to a bunch of interest. Sometimes I didn't even know how interesting a person was when I was talking to them. And then I found out, you're doing X or Y or Z. That's really cool. But it felt like everybody was really comfortable and open to just getting to know one another. And, I certainly I came away from that conference with about 4 or 5 really good relationships. I still got about 6 or 7 video calls to make afterwards where we've, connected and said, oh, let's chat more, because you can only chat so much at a conference. But I think we did a great job of getting that social connection going. Yeah. I would love to see it a little bigger, because I think we can nail it even more with that to fit the space, but it was already there. The vibe was there.
And in terms of attendance, I think that was our largest ever. We started in a classroom with 50 students at York University, and we were over 300. And the reality is, we're right now attracting the early adopters, right? It's early. This is groundbreaking. This was an historical event, which I shared with our delegates, to look around, take it in. Brand new building in the most incredibly designed building. We had the architects, Zebra, that design your building. And now we're planning. So what's my next? One of my next activities is to arrange MindShare Learning, Zebra Architects Learning Design Exchange in Denmark. I mean, they won the Lego contract to design their innovation center. You guys are truly world-class.
Yeah. And I mean, just to give one example for the people that weren't there, one of the nice things that we spend a lot of time in is this classroom in the round. It seats 500. If you've ever been at any other 500s, they're like these giant movie theater kind of things, and you feel lost as a student. This is all around. They're only 7 deep at any given time. And I'll say this one thing, and I don't mean this in any sort of bragging kind of way, But in past years, in my last lecture, I would often get applause at the end of my last lecture because students appreciated the
Yeah.
effort that I put in. This year, I get applause at the end of every lecture,
Come
and
on.
I just did
That
not
is
I did not
incredible.
expect it. I keep expecting them to stop doing that, and they don't. But I attribute that, I don't think it's a whole lot of change in my style, but that room is just feels
The
so
ex
intimate.
the
You get that human
experience.
connection, yeah, and it
It's
just
that
feels like a
human
vibe.
again, coming
Yeah,
back to the human connection,
yeah.
and you have a good friend and colleague who lectures on that and has a whole business, not for
Yep.
profit, around human connection.
Yeah, Mr. Pete Bombacci, who used to
Well,
be the Movember guy. For those of you
right.
practicing Movember, I don't think you're not practicing. I'm not
Yeah.
practicing.
No, not right now.
We're bad
I'm
examples.
contributing. I'm sponsoring others, but I'm not contributing personally.
Yep.
But we need to get him involved next year. We need
Yep.
more engagement. Part of leadership is reaching out and drawing in others, and that
Yes.
ultimately is the next challenge for us to reach out. We're assessing now for those viewers who are watching. We're assessing and deciding what's next in terms of going back to U of T Scarborough. The venue
Yep.
was amazing, inspiring, and we just want to do the right things and do our homework. And part of it, this is going to be entered into our survey, Google Doc,
Yep.
Google. I'm drawing a blank on the
A
survey, the Google
Okay.
survey,
Yes,
and
Google
then
form based. Yep.
forms. And and it pops up on my phone now because I mentioned Google. And I'm going to include this in a report today, our Can-Am report, because it's turned out to be a great reflection, artifact on for those who missed the summit, because it really was one of a kind beyond anything we've done. And that's what innovation is about. It's about taking risks, calculated risks, and courageous leadership. Talk to me about the importance of creating courageous leadership and not doing nothing.
Yep.
That's a double entendre, by the way. But some
Yep.
some organizations, whether they're colleges, universities, or school districts, aren't moving the needle anywhere, which is dangerous.
Yeah, it really is. Keeping it mysterious is kind of tricky. And we really so these leaders, first of all, a lot of these educational leaders had to lead through the epidemic, which itself was, or through the pandemic, which itself was like, a major damage control kind of leadership. Now they're being asked to do a different leadership. Now they're being asked to kind of shepherd their organizations and the people they represent through this AI challenge. And yes, we're lucky to be interacting with those people who are embracing that, and really saying, okay, this is my opportunity to have a real positive impact on the education of the future. But I think for a lot of people, it's intimidating. It's really, if it's left too mysterious, if it's a big hairy AI thing, then some people just want to run away from it or just see it as cheating and sort of discount it in
Right.
that way. And so we're seeing a little of that mix, but I think most of the education leaders, at least the ones that you and I have the pleasure of interacting with, are really embracing this. And what I like that I'm seeing from them, and this isn't just the educational administrators, this is also the businesses and such working
Right.
around education, is I'm seeing an acknowledgement of the need to be human as well. It's so easy when
Right.
technology goes somewhere to get all excited about the technology. I feel like what I think I want our conference to be about is that mix of, yes, let's get excited about the
Right.
opportunity, but let's not lose sight of the humanity, because the only way we actually have an impact is if we have great ideas that are then instituted and become part of what we do. And that second part requires us to really interact with teachers, as we both highly respect them. Teachers are where innovation either sticks or doesn't. And we have to be working with them, and we have to acknowledge the challenges and the difficulties, and come up with things like specific use cases and other things to try to help them meet the challenge that we would like to see them meet. And so it requires, yeah, clever technological ideas, but on the leadership side, that ability to really treat the people they work with respect, and with the kind of atmosphere that rewards them for embracing the things that should be embraced, but also really supports them, like you mentioned, the support
Right.
from technology and other things. We need to support our teachers now. We really do.
No, well said. And with that, grateful for your time this afternoon to reflect and unpack and we're going to be establishing an online community to carry on some of the themes that were addressed in the conversation with our delegates. We're launching EdTech Canada learning environment as well. There's some 500 EdTechs. Partnerships are so important today, right? And talk to me about partnerships for a moment and the value of partnerships. That everyone seems to be more open because it takes a village really to make this transformation happen. And ironically, digital transformation is truly about people. It's not about technology. It's about people embracing change, leadership, and going through the process of engaging the stakeholders and demystifying and drawing colleagues in from all levels.
Now, of course, I mean, you're well aware that you have the reputation as the connector, and that is what makes a Robert Martellacci conference different. is Robert? I don't think there's any corner of the education system that you stay out of. I think you go into all the corners, you meet all the critters that live on all the corners, and then you invite those critters to come out and come meet the other critters. And so, that's really that ability to have partnerships, to be talking to somebody from Dell or Canva, and then turn around and to be talking to Peter Singh, who's heading IT for TCD or TDSB, and just everybody, the indigenous leaders we were talking to. I feel like I learned so much from them in the conversations I had. It was just like every pocket of the education system is there, and they're actually connecting and interacting. And I think that is the sort of synergy we need. We need, for example, businesses like Dell to understand the challenges that educators are facing. And when there's that mutual understanding, then they can really come up with solutions together. And we all know that together is the key word, right? When we work together, we're all feel invested. So,
and I think of the other term I think of as agile leadership, right? To have that agility to pivot and adapt because the world is changing. And, the essential skills, the 7 C's we talk about: critical thinking, communication, collaboration, those, digital skills, digital literacy, right? Now AI literacy is another jargon term that I've heard used, the multi-literacies, you're facing that with your courses, right? And the syllabus, and what does that look like in the future?
Yeah. And I mean, I think that the funny thing is we don't know what it looks like in the future. So that's the funny thing that education and educators are in the middle of now. It's not so much that we're teaching students how to use particular instances of AI that will be valuable to them 10 years from now, let's say, because probably that instance of AI will be so outdated in 10 years. So what we're really teaching them is how to live in a world where we have this AI that's continually evolving, and how to, you kind of have to stay on top of it, so that what they know 10 years from now is not how to use a particular AI, but how to adjust to whatever AI is in that situation and to harness it for maximum effect. So it's kind of like living with a bucking bronco now. We've got this bucking bronco beside us, and we're going to teach you how to ride it, because it's going to keep changing the way it does stuff. But that's just, it's challenging for us as educators. We like to have a target. We like to tell students, if you do these things, that job's waiting for you. We don't know. We really don't know. And so we just have to do our best for our students to make sure, like you say, the 7 C's, that kind of thing, that they're equipped, they have the tools, that whatever the future brings, they're ready and able to negotiate it. And those include connection skills too. We should have an 8th C somewhere there, which is connection, the ability to, connect with other human beings, do things in partnerships.
I think that falls under communication, but we can give a big C for connection. Speaking of students, thank you for drawing some 50 of your students to the summit as volunteers. I would love to hear some of their feedback, and no doubt they really enjoyed it. They were so keen, and it's so helpful. It helped make the conference that much more impactful and meaningful.
Yeah, I certainly think to the extent we continue to do this conference, I really want that to be a core hallmark, that students are part of the discussion. And we all know, from any group, if we're trying to do something to benefit that group, it's really good to have that group part of the discussion of that process. And so I felt that here. We had the students there. They were part of panels. There was at least 2 different panels where they were expressing their perspectives. And I think I remember from both of those panels, it was the students that got most of the questions from the audience. You could tell there was a hunger, from all these other educators that are working to actually hear what the student was thinking and the world they were living in now. And so, I think having them as an active partner along with all the other partners we talk about. Yes, helping us with the conference, which they love. That's great experience for them, but also having them directly contribute. Hearing their voices, hearing their perspective. I think that was loud and clear, and that's one of the things that I feel really passionate about. So yeah.
Thank you for that. And on a final note, I want to congratulate you on coming second.
Well, that's my peace sign, right? It's like a number 2. So yeah.
Right. So appropriately, the Dragons Den Startup Challenge, it was our 9th year. I would have felt a little awkward if you won, being the host of the summit. But, Ghibli won out on you, something to work towards next year. But I want to be mindful of your time. Dr.
Yep.
Joordens, co-chair of this year's summit. Thank you so much for unpacking, and we can make this a whole series. Some great insights for those who didn't make it, and hopefully you'll be there next year. And stay tuned for more to come. And this will be embedded in our summit report that's going out later today. Our Can-Am report.
Well, I just want to say thank you again, Robert, for bringing the conference to UTSC and to me, and to allow me to be part of it all. It really was a fantastic event that I feel a lot of pride around. So
it was an honor to team up with you, Dr. Joordens. That was Dr. Steve Joordens, professor of psychology at the University of Toronto, Scarborough, and co-chair of this past year's Canadian EdTech Summit. My name is Robert Martellacci, the MindShare Learning Report. Be sure to check out www.MindShareLearning to get your latest issue. Stay tuned for next year. And until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, and keep the learning curve steep.